you're conditioned to perform. From sunrise to late night, every moment is a task, a goal, an achievement to be displayed. You're told this relentless hustle is the path to fulfillment. But what if every step forward has been a step further from who you truly are? If constant striving brings success, why are so many successful people quietly battling exhaustion, anxiety, and a nagging sense of is this all there is? The happiness you were promised is a mirage. Because modern life's greatest trick is convincing you that your worth is earned through endless doing, rather than discovered in simply being. In this video, we'll expose the hidden rules of this game and reveal why you've been playing it all wrong. The ultimate deception of modern life isn't that you haven't achieved enough. It's that you were never meant to be happy playing a game designed to keep you always wanting more. If you ignore this truth, you could spend your entire life chasing a finish line that doesn't exist, forever unfulfilled. But by the end of this video, you'll see a path to reclaim your true self and find genuine peace. Think about it for a moment. Every notification, every promotion, every social media highlight reel screams the same message: more. You've felt it, haven't you? That internal pressure that says you're not doing enough, you're not achieving enough, you're not being enough. This isn't an accident. It's the subtle hum of a system designed to keep you on a treadmill you never chose. You look around, and everyone else seems to be crushing it. The 25-year-old millionaire, the digital nomad, the productivity guru who accomplishes 3 businesses by lunch. But beneath this glittering facade, the quiet whispers of exhaustion, anxiety, and an unsettling emptiness are growing louder than ever before. In 2023, a major U.S. study found that nearly half of high-income earners, people making over $100,000 a year, still said their lives lacked meaning. Think about that. They did everything society told them to do. They worked, they climbed, they reached the top of the mountain, and they found nothing there. This isn't a sign of individual failure. It's a symptom of a deeply flawed system. A system that has subtly redefined success and happiness, turning them into moving targets that shift the moment you hit them. You buy the car, now you need the house. You hit 6 figures, now you need 7. It never ends. It's like pouring water into a cup with a hole in the bottom. No matter how much you pour, it's never full. And that's by design. Modern success is not built to satisfy you. It's built to sell to you. It keeps you running, performing, comparing. It transforms your life into a scoreboard. And if you're not playing to win, you're playing to not lose. That's not freedom. That's a prison in disguise. And the worst part, most people don't even realize they're trapped. They think they're grinding for their families, chasing dreams, building a legacy. But deep down, what they're truly chasing is approval, validation. That brief high that comes when someone sees you and says, "You made it." But like any drug, that high wears off fast, and you'll need a bigger hit next time. So, the fundamental question we must confront is, are you really chasing success? Or just trying to prove you're not a failure? To understand this pervasive sense of being trapped, we need to step back and examine the very structure that has shaped our lives, often without our conscious consent. What most of us call normal isn't natural at all. It's a system, one built not to empower individuals, but to standardize them. From the moment you're born, the path is already mapped. Go to school, get good grades, learn to sit still and follow instructions. Then pick a career, clock in, clock out, repeat for 40 years. And if you're lucky, you get a few quiet years at the end before your time runs out. This feels disturbingly Kafkaesque, like Franz Kafka's protagonist Gregor Samsa, who wakes to find himself inexplicably transformed into a giant insect. His greatest worry is still getting to work on time. He is a creature of a functionalistic professional life, reduced to his responsibilities, anxious about advancement, and vexed by the fear of making commercial mistakes. This isn't just about feeling lost in bureaucracy or struggling with confusing paperwork, though that's certainly a part of it. The deeper Kafkaesque element is the irony of finding yourself caught in a disorienting, illogical ordeal where success becomes pointless, and you're a prisoner of a system you barely understand, or worse, of your own conditioned responses to it. Kafka himself, working as an insurance clerk, experienced this pervasive, arbitrary power of systems over individuals. This societal blueprint, this game, wasn't created for your benefit. The concept of retirement, for example, dates back to 1889, introduced by German Chancellor Otto von Bismarck, not as a gift, but as a way to manage productivity by removing the elderly from the workforce to make room for younger, more efficient labor. It was economic policy disguised as compassion. And over time, we accepted it as truth. The system never asked what kind of life you wanted. It asked what kind of worker you could become. And slowly, silently, it began to define your worth by how well you could serve its needs. This brings us to a fundamental metaphysical question. What is the origin and nature of these moral standards and societal values that dictate our lives? Are they eternal truths or human creations? Plato explored this over 2,000 years ago. Philosophers like Thrasymachus argued that justice and morality are human creations, designed by the powerful to control and exploit the weak, a myth for the weak-minded. But Socrates countered, arguing that justice provides independent and eternal standards. Modern society often operates on the Thrasymachian principle, even if unconsciously. The system doesn't teach you to ask why you worked, only how hard. It doesn't encourage you to question the routine, only to improve your efficiency within it. This is the deeper deception that your life belongs to you, when in truth, it's been scheduled, scripted, and monetized from the start. The education system trains you for labor. The labor system demands your time. And the retirement system quietly dismisses you when your utility declines. The entire structure is designed for maximum output, not personal fulfillment. And yet, most people never resist it, not because they agree, but because they've never seen another option. When a machine is all you've ever known, silence starts to feel like peace. But it's not peace, it's numbness. You're not free. You're just no longer questioning. Now, let's confront one of the most insidious lies woven into the fabric of this system, the lie of moral labor. You work 60 hours a week, show up early, stay late, say yes when others say no. You follow the rules. You sacrifice your time, your energy, your health for the job, for the team, for the promise of someday. You're loyal, honest, you take pride in doing things the right way. And yet, somehow, you're stuck. Watching someone else, someone who cuts corners, talks more than they work, knows the right people but lacks your skills, rise higher, faster, living the life you thought you'd earned. And you're left wondering, what did I do wrong? But maybe that's the wrong question. Maybe the real question is, what lie have I been told? From childhood, you were taught that hard work leads to reward, that effort equals outcome, that if you just grind long enough, the system will eventually notice, recognize, and repay you. But what if that formula is broken? Worse, what if it was never real to begin with? Friedrich Nietzsche, the German philosopher who shattered illusions and exposed the hidden architecture of human belief, once wrote that moral labor, the kind of work glorified for its sacrifice, obedience, and humility, is not noble. It is a form of spiritual slavery, a psychological trap designed not to uplift you, but to keep you in place. Because here's the uncomfortable truth. In a world where power determines outcomes, morality is often used to control those who have none. You were taught to believe that virtue is its own reward, that if you just kept your head down and stayed good, life would eventually be fair. But life isn't fair. Life is competitive. Life is political. And the system you serve doesn't reward virtue. It rewards value, not the value you create, but the value you control. This is why the nurse pulling a 12-hour shift gets paid less than the TikToker selling a get-rich-fast course. This is why a blue-collar worker who breaks their back every day will retire with barely enough, while someone who manipulates markets walks away with millions. It's not your fault that you believe this myth. In fact, the myth was designed for people like you, to keep you obedient, to keep you working, to keep you from asking dangerous questions like, who benefits from my loyalty? Who profits from my exhaustion? Why does the system praise hard work and reward something else entirely? Nietzsche didn't say, you should stop working. He didn't glorify laziness or selfishness. What he challenged was the idea that obedient labor is inherently moral, that to suffer without reward is somehow sacred, that virtue means submission. He called this mindset slave morality, a belief system born not from strength but from weakness, not from power but from fear. If you feel stuck despite doing everything right, you're not crazy. You're waking up. You're beginning to see that the world isn't malfunctioning. It's functioning exactly as it was built to. The people who rise aren't always the most skilled or the most selfless. They are the ones who understand power, how to navigate it, how to claim it, and how to detach their worth from whether or not the system approves. This reliance on a belief in a fundamentally fair world is known in psychology as the just world fallacy. It's the comforting idea that good things happen to good people, that effort equals outcome, that what you give will always come back. It's a beautiful idea that gives people hope and helps us make sense of suffering, but it's not true. And clinging to it, especially in a system designed to reward power over principle, isn't just naive, it's dangerous. Because while you're working late, double-checking spreadsheets, fixing problems you didn't cause, someone else is learning how to play the board. While you're saying, yes, being polite, taking on the extra shift, someone else is building alliances, studying leverage, understanding exactly how to make the system work for them. You believe you're being moral. They're being strategic. And in this world, strategy wins. The system doesn't just fail to reward hard work. It uses your belief in fairness to keep you locked in place. The longer you wait for your virtue to be noticed, the easier you are to control. People who believe in justice don't rebel. They don't demand more. They keep waiting for recognition, for fairness, for someday. But someday never comes. This isn't just about money. It's about mindset. It's about understanding that if you keep showing up with the wrong map, you'll never reach the right destination. The rules you were taught were designed to produce good workers, not powerful people. Because the people who taught them to you, they understood the game. They just needed someone else to keep playing it. Beyond the workplace, the illusion of freedom continues to play out. They told you freedom would come at 65. That if you worked hard, stayed loyal, and kept climbing the ladder for 4 decades, one day you'd be free to travel, to relax, to finally live. Retirement was painted as the promised land, the reward at the end of a long, obedient life. But what if that promise was never real? What if it was a carefully crafted illusion to keep you moving, producing, complying, without ever questioning the cost? The brutal truth waiting at the end of that path is far from liberating. According to a 2020 study, over 2/3 of retirees in America feel disoriented within just 18 months of retiring, not because they ran out of money, but because they ran out of identity. They suddenly wake up in a world where their role, their purpose, their very sense of self has vanished. You see, the system didn't prepare them for freedom, it prepared them to function. It trained them to operate within a machine, not to live beyond it. Retirement isn't the grand reward they were promised. It's the quiet dismissal from the stage, the moment the role ends. The spotlight fades, and no one tells you what to do next. This echoes the profound transformation in Franz Kafka's The Metamorphosis. When Gregor Samsa transforms, his family, particularly his sister Greet, also undergoes a metamorphosis, shifting from loved ones to caretakers, and eventually, to those who are disgusted and want him gone. Gregor, once the family's sole provider, becomes a burden, his value tied to his utility, and when that utility disappears, so does his place. His slow self-abnegation and eventual death by starvation, complying with his family's wish, become a metaphor for the individual who loses identity and worth when their function within the system ends. The story shows the isolating effects of being different and how easily carers can be unintentionally cruel when faced with prolonged challenges. This existential crisis begins because what do you do when you've spent your entire life performing a role, and then that role disappears? Who are you without your job title, without the emails, the deadlines, the meetings that made you feel important? For decades, your value was measured by productivity, not presence. And now that the system no longer needs you, you're expected to know how to simply enjoy life without ever having been taught how. Retirement was never about freedom. It was about timing your usefulness. It was never designed for you to explore your inner self or to reconnect with what truly matters. It was designed to phase you out, a graceful exit from the machine, while convincing you it's a reward. That's the brilliance of the lie. It doesn't sound cruel, it sounds like a gift. But Alan Watts said it best. You are under no obligation to be the person you were told to be. That sentence shatters the foundation of the retirement myth. Because if you were never meant to follow someone else's script in the first place, then maybe retirement isn't the end of a chapter. Maybe it's the moment you realize the book was never yours to begin with. And that realization hurts, because it forces you to confront a deeper question. What does it mean to be free if you've spent your whole life waiting for permission to live? Are you truly living at all? We are taught to delay everything: joy, rest, discovery, reflection, as if life will finally begin when the work is over. But life doesn't wait. It doesn't start at 65. It has been happening all along, and most of us were too busy preparing for it to notice. So maybe the real lie isn't just about retirement. Maybe the lie is that you ever needed to wait for freedom at all. Maybe freedom was never a destination. It was a way of being, one you could have chosen at any point. But no one told you that, because a free person can't be controlled. A free person doesn't need the script. A free person sees retirement not as a reward, but as a reminder that we traded our days for a promise that was never real. And now we're left wondering what life could have been if we had just started living it sooner. Even after the formal role ends, the machine doesn't let you go. It just gives you a new one. This time, not as a worker, but as a consumer. You don't retire from the system. You retire into another system, one designed to profit off the years you have left. The moment you step out of your career, you step into the crosshairs of $1 trillion industry, the business of retirement freedom. It's a seductive illusion that sells you peace, leisure, and fulfillment, all neatly packaged in cruise brochures, real estate pitches, financial plans, and insurance portfolios. You're told this is your time to enjoy life, to travel the world, to finally live. But here's the trick: it's not freedom they're offering. It's a product. And the product isn't the trip, the condo, or the lifestyle. The product is you, or more precisely, your desire to feel in control after decades of being controlled. They sell you comfort because they know you're afraid of chaos, They sell you plans because they know you've never lived without one. So instead of encouraging inner freedom, they offer external order, a new routine of spending, managing, maintaining, a continuation of structure disguised as liberation. And just like that, retirement becomes a market, not a milestone. A demographic, not a discovery. You're not free. You're just being softly reabsorbed into a more mature corner of the same machine. So, if society's game is rigged, if success is a moving target, and if freedom is an illusion sold as a product, what truly makes a person free? What enables them to step outside the system's quiet control? Picture that man on the park bench again. He's not scrolling, not posing, not watching anyone. He's simply there, still at peace, while around him the world races. He radiates something rare, something unsettling, a kind of quiet fullness, a presence that says, I don't need anything from you. And that, my friend, makes him the most dangerous person in that space. Not because he wants to take power, but because he doesn't need it. Not because he's better than anyone, but because he's no longer bound by the same invisible chains. While others seek approval, comfort, and distraction, he has found something far more powerful: inner completeness. And that changes everything. Because in a society built on want, the man who needs nothing becomes a mirror. And in that mirror, the world sees its own addiction to attention, to validation, to more. Let's get brutally honest, this society doesn't just encourage you to want more, it requires you to. The modern world isn't designed to fulfill you, it's designed to keep you needing. The moment you stop craving, you stop consuming. And if you stop consuming, the entire machine begins to rust. That's why every screen whispers, you're not enough. That's why every advertisement screams, you're falling behind, you're not successful enough, so buy the course. You're not attractive enough, so buy the cream, the clothes, the surgery. You're not connected enough, so spend 6 hours a day checking who liked your post. But here's the dark truth. It's not just marketing. It's mind control. Carl Jung once said, people will do anything, no matter how absurd, to avoid facing their own soul. Why? Because once you look inward, truly inward, you realize how much of your identity was built on borrowed beliefs, external expectations, and artificial desires. Society doesn't want you to meet your soul. It wants you to keep running from it. Because the moment you confront your inner world, you begin to see just how manipulated your outer world is. Centuries earlier, Niccolo Machiavelli understood this same principle, but from the other side of the chessboard. As an advisor to princes and rulers, he knew exactly how to control a population. His advice: never let the people feel whole. Keep them distracted. Keep them needing. Keep them looking up to the crown for salvation. Because a citizen who is content, who doesn't fear lack, who doesn't hunger for praise, is also a citizen who cannot be ruled. Think about that. When you need nothing, no one can dangle bait in front of you. No promise can seduce you. No threat can scare you. You become ungovernable. And to systems built on dependency, that's the ultimate rebellion. What happens when a man begins to unlearn what society has programmed into him? What happens when he stops measuring his worth by how much he has, how many people approve of him, or how well he plays the game? Carl Jung had a word for this kind of transformation: individuation, the process of becoming who you truly are, not who the world told you to be. It's not about adding more. It's about stripping away everything false. At the center of this journey is the confrontation with two forces: the persona and the shadow. The persona is the mask you wear to survive in society. It's the polished image, the likable version of you that plays along to avoid rejection. It's the part of you that performs. Jung said, the persona is a kind of coat that we wear in dealing with the world. But it's not who you are, it's who you pretend to be. Most people confuse the mask for their identity And in doing so, they become prisoners of it. But the man who walks the path of individuation tears the mask off. He turns inward, and there he finds the shadow, everything he was told not to be: his anger, his lust, his fear, his ambition, his wounds. Most people run from this part of themselves. But the dangerous man, the man who needs nothing, he doesn't run, he integrates. He brings the shadow into the light. He doesn't let it control him, but he no longer denies it. And by doing so, he becomes whole. This man no longer craves approval. He's not terrified of rejection. He's not driven by the unconscious need to belong. He's done the inner work, the quiet, brutal work of facing himself. He's not trying to be good. By someone else's definition, he's trying to be real. And that is what makes him dangerous. Because he's not waiting for society to validate his truth. He knows it for himself. He's not reactive. He's rooted. He doesn't follow trends. He follows truth. And in a world built on imitation, someone who is authentically whole becomes a mirror others don't want to look into, because he reminds them of what they've avoided in themselves. This psychological independence is characterized by 4 dimensions of the inner life. Psychological fullness. He doesn't wait for praise to feel proud. He doesn't collapse under criticism. His sense of self isn't fragile because it's not dependent. He's made peace with his past, owns his flaws, and doesn't outsource his self-worth. This doesn't make him arrogant. It makes him whole. Moral authorship. He lives by a code he chose, not one inherited blindly from parents, media, or culture. He's examined it, tested it, suffered for it, and now he doesn't need public approval to stay true to it. His integrity doesn't wobble when the crowd turns. He does what's right, not what's popular. He may walk alone, but he never walks against his own values. Intellectual clarity. He thinks dangerous thoughts. He questions what others accept. He's willing to challenge sacred truths, tear down inherited dogmas, and build belief systems from the ground up. He doesn't confuse comfort with truth. He'd rather be disturbed by what's real than comforted by what's false. That's why he can't be programmed, because he's already deconstructed the software. Unyielding will. He doesn't fold under pressure. The world can push, mock, seduce, and threaten, but he stays rooted. He doesn't chase applause. He doesn't fear exile. He makes his choices deliberately, even if they cost him everything. His power isn't in domination, but in non-submission. That's why he can't be used. He has no leash, no handle to grab. He's already decided, I would rather lose the world than lose myself. This path isn't glamorous. It's not easy. And it's definitely not for everyone. Becoming the man who needs nothing comes with a price. You will be misunderstood. People will label you cold, distant, or arrogant, because they can't fathom someone who doesn't crave what they crave. They'll question your motives. They'll mistake your silence for emptiness, your restraint for weakness, your refusal to conform. But they're wrong. You're not rebelling. You're remembering. You'll lose relationships, not because you don't care, but because you stop performing. And when you stop performing, you stop giving people the version of you they were comfortable with. That kind of authenticity breaks illusions. And some people won't forgive you for waking up. You'll notice how shallow many connections really were, how many were built on mutual need, not mutual truth. And that realization can feel like loneliness, but it's actually clarity. So, what do we do with all this? After stripping away the myths, the roles, the scripts, what's left? Just this: a choice. Because real freedom isn't something you wait for. It isn't something handed to you after decades of loyalty to a system. And it sure as hell isn't something you buy with a pension plan. Real freedom is a capacity, not a condition. It's not about having more time. It's about having the power to be fully alive in the time you already have. Freedom is presence. It's the ability to meet life as it is, not as you wish it would be, or as you planned it, or as they told you it should look. And the wildest part, you don't have to retire to find it. You can start now, inside the very system that tried to take it from you. You can retire from the mentality before you ever retire from the job. That begins with redefining who you are, not by what you do, not by the role you play, but by what you value, what lights you up, what feels real when everything else falls quiet. Maybe you've spent decades being an engineer, a manager, a provider. But beneath that, you've always been something deeper, a creator, a seeker, a soul. So build your life from that center. Create a new schedule, one that honors more than just deadlines and obligations. Make time for purposeful silence. Time where nothing needs to be achieved, solved, or improved. Time to just be. That space is where freedom begins, not in doing more, but in doing less with more intention. And when it comes to connection, shift the focus. Don't chase experiences for the sake of checking boxes or collecting memories like souvenirs. Choose depth over novelty. Choose people who see you, not just roles you can play. Choose conversations that move you, not just moments that distract you. Because what we're really starving for, beneath all the plans and purchases, is presence with each other and with ourselves. That's where meaning lives. Alan Watts once said, "This is the real secret of life, to be completely engaged with the now." That's not just philosophy, it's a survival skill in a world that's constantly pulling you toward later, toward someday, toward what's next. Your ability to return to no is an act of rebellion. And maybe that's the most powerful retirement of all, retiring from the trance, from the endless striving, from the belief that life is always just a few steps away. You don't need to wait until 65. You don't need the perfect plan. You don't need to have it all figured out. What you need is the courage to stop, to breathe, to ask yourself, what would it mean to actually live today? Not to prepare for life, not to plan for life, but to live it fully, honestly, without the mask, without the timeline. Because the lie was never just about retirement. The real lie was that you ever had to earn your freedom. And the truth, you were free the moment you stopped waiting. Now, if this realization stings, it's okay. Let it. Sometimes the truth hurts before it sets you free. But that freedom is waiting. Not in the next trophy. Not in the next post. It's in you, right now, waiting to be remembered. To truly step into this freedom, you must redefine what strength looks like. This isn't about abandoning morality, but about overcoming the morality of weakness. Nietzsche wasn't telling you to abandon integrity. He was telling you to stop confusing submission with virtue. His solution wasn't to destroy morality, but to become someone who doesn't just follow rules, but writes new ones. Someone who doesn't need permission to live with purpose. In his words, that person is the Übermensch, the overman, not a tyrant, not a villain, but a fully realized individual, a creator of values. Someone who walks away from systems that no longer serve them and builds something better in their place. The Übermensch doesn't sit quietly, hoping to be seen. He defines his own meaning. He doesn't wait to be promoted. He creates impact on his terms. He understands the system, but isn't enslaved by it. He knows when to play the game and when to change the board. He understands that power isn't evil. It's necessary, not power over others, but power over yourself, your direction, your destiny. Think about people like Elon Musk, fired from the company he helped create, dismissed as reckless, until he built an empire on vision, conviction, and the refusal to be ruled by fear. What separates these people isn't just talent or luck, it's mindset. They didn't wait for the system to validate them. They stopped asking, "When will they see my worth?" and started asking, "Why am I giving them that power in the first place?" That shift from waiting to creating, from submitting to owning, that's the path Nietzsche pointed to. That's what it means to step out of the cage of moral labor. But escaping that cage means letting go of something deeply comfortable, your attachment to being seen as good by society's standards. It means being willing to disappoint people who benefit from your silence. It means being willing to stand alone for a time while you build a new foundation. True strength isn't about domination. It's about authorship, about writing a life that aligns with your deepest values, not the values handed to you by a system designed to keep you docile. So, what does action look like after the awakening? After you've seen through the illusion of moral labor? After you've stopped waiting for fairness? After you've chosen not to abandon morality but to reclaim your power? What's next? It starts with understanding this. Kindness is not weakness, but strategic kindness. That's strength. Too often, people confuse being good with being passive. They think saying yes, avoiding conflict, and putting others first makes them virtuous. But Nietzsche would say, morality without consciousness is just obedience in disguise. The goal is not to become cold or manipulative. It's to become conscious. To learn how to move through the world with both a moral compass and a survival strategy. Strategic kindness means knowing when to help and when to walk away. It means reading people, not just blindly trusting them. It means understanding context, when to speak, when to stay silent, when to strike. It means you don't say yes to everyone just to be liked. You say yes when it aligns with your goals, your truth, your strength. Because here's the thing, not every job deserves your loyalty. Not every leader deserves your trust. Not every opportunity deserves your time. You must become the kind of person who knows when to walk away, when a situation is no longer serving you, and has the strength to leave. Leaving is not failure. Sometimes it's the beginning of freedom. This is where power comes in. Not as something you take from others, but something you claim for yourself. Power to create, power to say no, power to build systems where you're not just earning, you're owning. Where your energy doesn't just fuel someone else's machine, it fuels a mission that reflects your values. That might mean starting your own business, or building a secondary income stream, or learning how influence works, not to deceive, but to defend your vision. It might mean learning negotiation, setting boundaries, saying, I won't do this anymore, and meaning it. These are not betrayals of your morals. These are expressions of your maturity. Because the truth is, if you don't learn how to play the power game, you will always be a pawn in it. But if you do learn, you don't have to lose your soul in the process. The key is to use power as a tool, not a trophy. Let your ethics guide your direction, but let strategy carry your decisions. Nietzsche put it simply, power is not evil. It's the will to become more than a servant, more than a cog, more than just the good employee. It's the will to become the author of your own worth. And you can't do that if you treat morality as a cage. You have to treat it as a compass, one that points to your north, not someone else's approval. So, no, don't throw away your principles. Don't become another cynical player chasing status for status's sake. But do learn how the game is played. Do understand leverage. Do recognize when you're being used and when you're being seen. Because the future doesn't belong to the obedient. It belongs to the clear, the conscious, the ones who merge principle with power, empathy with edge. Not the ones who wait for the world to change, but the ones who learn to change the terms of their own existence. If you grew up believing that hard work is enough, that if you just keep your head down, stay loyal, and do things the right way, life will reward you, then it's time to wake up. Not because hard work is worthless, but because hard work without power, without strategy, without ownership, will keep you stuck. The real man doesn't just labor. He sees the system for what it is. He studies it, understands it, And when the rules no longer serve him, he writes new ones. That's the difference between surviving and leading, between being a cog in someone else's machine and becoming the architect of your own future. So, if you're tired of waiting, if you're done with the myth that sacrifice is enough, if you're ready to think deeper, act smarter, and live on your own terms, this is where it begins. Don't scroll past this. Sit with it. Let it work on you. And if it speaks to something true, live like it. You don't have to keep running. You already matter. Now act like it.